My name is Domenica Campos and I am an Oceanography student at SPOL. Have you thought about how people measure things million years ago? I mean, million years ago people even didn't have rules. Well, we don't have to go so far, but century years ago, humans tried to get started with this idea of getting dimensions and proportion for things. So they started making relations with what they have near, for example, their bodies. This bottle is like a little less than a hand. Then the idea of measuring with feet or hands was developed because it wasn't accurate enough. Obviously because my feet doesn't measure the same as yours. It was until 18th century that was started the idea of getting references. Priest Gabriel Monton was the first man trying to propose matter as a unit system. This definition came from the meridian arc. He divided the Earth's circumference in decimal form. Then the idea was changed by was a 10 millionth of a quarter of the terrestrial meridian that passes through Paris. So as not to extend the story, in 1875 was created an intergovernmental organization called General Conference on Weight and Measures, and in 1960 that entity started using the International Unit System with 6 units as meter, kilogram, second, ampere, Kelvin, and candle. But what happened with my feet? This international unit wasn't adopted around all the world. For example, in US, they still have using feet or inch in length, they are using Fahrenheit on temperature, but all these things in a real way, not as before. Also, in other countries as Myanmar, they use an unknown system that only used there, using lang for length, peta in weight, mayet in liter, and others. But the government recognized that that isn't useful use a unique system, so they're in the progress of changing that. We're talking about units, but what happened with dimensions? We define dimensions as when you have an equation, the adds are in the same way. For example, if you have an equation of fruits, you add pears with pears and apple with apple. But it's complicated because exist too many that we can classify them. Exist basic ones. For weight, for example, are grams. For length are meters, inch, feet. For time is second, and for temperature could be Fahrenheit, Celsius, Kelvin. Then are secondary, which comes from basic ones like speed, which is the result as the division between length and time, like meter per second or feet per second in US. Tertiary are which come from these others, like Newton, because Newton comes from the multiplication of acceleration, that is secondary, and mass, that is primary. Other thing that we should know about units is that sometimes that quantity that we want to represent is really small, or they could be really big. So we use scientific notation to write them down and prefix to call them. It's like we divide or multiply our reference, in this case could be meter, per 10. This is how we divide or multiply our reference, for example meter per 10. We have the most common, milli, that it means divided per 1,000. Or we have also kilo, that means multiplied with 1,000. That's how we can have meter or millimeter or kilometer. Also exist other prefixes commonly used, like gigabytes, which means 10 multiplied with 9 times per 1 giga. That's a lot. Or picometer represents something really small, the diameter of an atom. Finally, I think humans are stronger if we join between us, if we work together as one. So it would be better for progress if everybody started using the same unit system. For example, in oceanography, I think there's a lot to study, a lot to develop with tools or equipments. So I think if we work together, it would be better. Thanks for watching.